So the ceiling update came out, or the ceiling progress update came out, and I was actually planning to look at that, but I'm thinking I'm going to be more focused on doing my Slayer task. Might as well do... It doesn't really matter. Oh, right. I need to equip my boots of stone. I didn't even grab my dragon boots. I thought I had. Okay. Let's get down there and start working. Ooh, there's a new Hanani video. Well, it's not new, but...
The Yogscast Mystery Box. Who knows what could be inside? It won't be a hand, probably. It'll probably be a clothing and some other bits. Yogscast, available now.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Trouble in Terrorist Town! Today I'm joined by Pedguin and Rithian. Trying to kill the detective there, Pedguin. Very suspicious.
Just walk away.
Also Ben, hello. OZ.
Hello.
Also Duncan. Hello.
Wow.
Right.
Jesus, what's happening?
Also
We're gonna do a farming
Ravs is
run
here.
in...
Trying to find cinder blocks. What just happened?
Never mind, we're not gonna be doing a farming run anytime soon.
Boba.
I mean, we can do a farming run. Probably today.
Whoa, no!
We can at least get these out of the way, and then these out of the way.
Boba's been killed as
And
well.
then tomorrow, I guess I'll
Double
do
kill.
another farming
I think
run.
we can stop that spree right now. Peg, bad as well.
I'm not bad.
Ben, run.
Better this way.
So I'm gonna have to wait for...
I killed Pet because he was shooting Ben.
Yeah, Ben's bad.
I'm not bad. I shot Duncan.
What do I need to use?
Duncan killed.
What kind of... They use magic, right? Okay. Never mind. It's probably not worth worrying about.
Rithian, I'm over! Yes, but he was a jester.
Wait.
Oh.
Wait.
Wait. Oh, no. We can work this out.
No, but you said that you knew he was a jester.
No, but we can work this out, Rev.
Can we?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you son of a bitch.
Uh-oh.
Just threw it straight up in the air. Straight back down.
I've got my eye in yet. I've just died.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna grab.
Oh my god,
I was just about to kill Lewis. Just wait.
Good job,
I
guys.
delayed you long enough with the old piece of
Hang on,
fighting.
Duncan wasn't even bad.
He was a clown.
He was a clown.
He was a clown. You were lucky.
He
to
was
not
in a clown
kill.
car.
I was trying to see if it would actually kill anyone if I
I was very surprised it did damage.
And luckily, you killed both the glitch and the detective, which I was greatly relieved about.
Wait, how do you know it was the glitch?
Well, because Penguin came back. So when I moused over Ravs, it said parasite infecting, and I was like, oh, I better not kill him. Oh shit! Duncan just blew up the gas station.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
Duncan,
See,
can I go
saw it.
5 seconds in a round before
I
you kill
didn't.
me sometime?
I didn't even fucking press anything.
Wow, how are you?
Duncan's healing.
I've
Duncan's
got a
healing. He's
health
back.
potion. I've got a health potion. I
Not
blew up the
hitting
gas
him.
Station now. He's healing.
I didn't blow up the gas
This is
station.
for Rithian.
Justice for
The
Rithian.
floor is Kara.
I didn't do
Alright, let's go
it.
grab some range
It's
here.
Duncan.
I was like, I don't know why Lewis thinks it was me.
All right, fine.
No.
The floor is Kara.
This is so dangerous to navigate here with Penguin in a car.
Yeah, I don't like it.
The floor is Kara. Get off the floor.
What is
Kara. The floor is lava. You didn't
Floor is
play that as a
carver.
kid?
Yeah, like
Carver? What? As in, like the? Why
Like a
am
bit
I
carver.
moving uncontrollably? What's
I'm
going
just
on?
moving as well, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sliding.
I'm sliding
Duncan,
around.
why did you blow up the gas station, Duncan?
I didn't!
What the hell?
I don't know what you're thinking about.
Why would you do it?
Get
I was
in.
nowhere near the gas station. I don't know why Lewis said it.
Where is Lewis? Is he dead?
Lewis?
I shot him
Oh,
because he was
what?
trying to get me killed.
Show me where his body is.
Whoa! Okay, it's
Aye,
Rabs.
Duncan.
It's Rabs.
No,
Where-
Duncan,
where
is
is the body?
silencing. Duncan is silencing those.
I killed Lewis because he was trying to kill me. That's
Show
why I
me the
killed him.
body.
He's down on the road. He's down
I'm
on
not.
the road.
I'm not shooting anymore.
Is
You mean
down the
Duncan
road.
using his lion voice?
He's on the road.
Oh, I'm stuck in the toilet. Help! Help!
He was a good man.
I can't get out of the
Why was he
toilet.
trying to kill me then?
Well, he must have saw you do some shit.
He didn't see anything. He said I blew up the gas station, but I was nowhere fucking near it.
Oh, there we go. I'm out of the toilet. Thank goodness.
I think he must be bad. I think Duncan's bad. I think we should just kill Duncan.
Yo, I glitched through a wall. Can someone help me?
I think Rabs is trying to get. Rabs is bloodthirsty.
Where are you?
Oh my god, you saved my
No,
life.
you're the only one that sounds bad right now, Duncan.
The only reason I sound bad is because Lewis, for some reason, thought I blew up the gas station.
Mr. Detective, well, even
That's
Rivian
me.
thought so.
I'm a detective.
Rivian died.
Because you blew it up.
Yeah, he did blame you before he died.
Oh,
We've let
Oh,
this
that-
go on
Good.
for long
That's
enough.
Yeah, let's
bullshit.
do.
Didn't hear that one. That's why everyone thought I was bad.
He was an impersonator.
For what it's worth, I said that based on what I heard, not based on anything I saw.
Oh.
So when someone shouted,
stands.
"Duncan, why did you explode?" I was like, "Jesus, Duncan, can I get 5 seconds?" I didn't base that on any sort of
Oh no.
knowledge, just from
We're
what
on.
I
I
heard.
didn't realize we're on get items next round. I just bought some stuff and I didn't get to keep it. So whoever's traitor is gonna have a bad time because he can't even buy any items. Okay, well I think Ravs must be good because Ravs was given.
Yeah, I
some
was
shit.
pro kill Duncan.
Yeah.
Pro kill Duncan.
Ped was mysteriously absent during the kill.
I
Duncan
was
discussion.
driving around and I drove out the map and then I came
I
back.
think Ped might be a naughty
Ow,
boy.
wait.
And I think
shooting
Boba
me.
was pro killing Duncan.
I was.
Whoever keeps shooting me.
Ah,
that's
jeez,
anything
I
to
keep
call.
making mistakes. Honestly,
Wait, Oz
I
is
still have
here
my cape
too.
on.
I am here.
Oz is suspo number 2.
I was stuck in the toilet for a long time.
I mean, it looks
Gun
really
checks out.
fashionable, but I need to get the Abe's accumulator on.
What's your
I
for
don't
lunch?
know. I'm worried that Penguin's a jester because he's been
There we
acting
go.
so
I had
silly.
all of this menu. I had the hot pie. I had the
Stop, Boba.
The suspicious hot dog,
suspicious hot dog. Yes.
I hate
Well, that
you.
takes care of that.
the slightly furry
The
sandwich.
more suspicious, the
shoots
more
at him.
delicious.
Wait, is Ped dead?
Ped was a
I don't
clowny
know
boy.
what Ped's doing.
I killed
He was
Ped.
acting very silly, so that checks
Wait,
out.
does that mean Oz? Does that mean Oz
Oz,
is evil?
yeah. Oz was doing it. Was it doing an
Toilet girl,
evil toilet?
girl.
Ow!
Put her back into the
She was doing
toilet.
bad toilet work.
God, my bowels.
I'm here to get you, toilet girl.
What do you mean?
I'm here to. Wait a second.
Hang on,
Huh?
what?
What?
Oh my god. Oh. Oh no. Boba's been taken to the toilet too.
Much better.
Is it just me and I?
I think that's about as much damage as we were doing before.
You zapped her right in the
I
heart.
think she thought she was invisible. She drank the potion, but then went visible again straight away.
Oh, I think if you change, if you take the potion out of your hand, I'm not sure how. It works.
Maybe, yeah. God, I worked so hard to try and clear my name.
No, you were. I was seething. Every time you said it wasn't me, I was just like a bit more angry with you. Because I saw you look at the gas station, it exploded, then you instantly looked away and ran out of the way. I was just like, it's so obvious. Oh shit!
Wait a second.
We all have bat.
All those items I bought for myself this round have just been deleted.
Oh, what kind of cats are we? What kind of cat are you, Rithian?
Many different types of
Oh my god, Rithian. Oh, you're beautiful. Look at you.
Get out, you weird cats. Yeah.
Why am I so weird?
You
You're
can't
weird.
be in the cat
dude.
gang, Rithian.
I really like you. Let me look at your rippling abs.
What?
It's like Invader Zim.
Stop hitting me! Oh, what the fuck?
You're weird, you're a weird
Can I
cat.
get 5 seconds in any round, please?
Oh yeah, shit. Rithian has literally died immediately.
Who's driving this car? What the?
Oh, it's a ghost car.
Why is Christine? Christine.
swarm of cats.
Oh my god.
Christine.
Oh, Duncan, you won't be able to come back now.
Who hit
I
you?
made it. I made it over the invisible
Christine.
wall.
You will never return.
Why am I slipping and sliding?
Ow.
Oh.
Who did that?
I reckon it's Ped.
Yeah.
Get him.
Get
Yeah.
Ped. Where's
Kill
Ped?
me.
Ped.
Do it.
Let's do it.
Ped's dead. Then it's Boba. Then it must be. Which one's the glitch? Is it Ravs?
Well, no, I'm definitely bad.
Ravs is serious cat, and O's is goofy cat.
What kind of cat am I?
Oh no!
Okay,
It
Ben,
is
no, Ben,
Ravs.
no, Ben, it's
You
not
lied
me.
to me.
I didn't lie to you. Duncan's still
no.
alive.
Oh, Duncan is still alive.
I'm
The
just a
sinister-
regular innocent, though.
The shadow cat. He's out of bounds. What do we do?
Hold on. I have a plan.
The shadow cat. This is
Damn you.
horrifying.
There he goes.
Oh,
Once.
oh shit! I'm real low.
I just need to get an angle on this car.
Oops. Okay.
What the fuck?
Come here.
I've got 7 health.
Oh!
Oh.
He has to come to you, Ravs.
No, Raz has got to come to me. I'm innocent.
Oh, what?
Fucking sword fighting you.
Shit, we
Holy
were all
shit.
bad. There was no
Yeah, we were.
glitch.
I thought one of us wasn't
Oh.
bad.
Oh, see, I did. You should have just said it.
Oh, new video from Endymion.
What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and you already know we gotta do a big deep dive into the latest Assassin's Creed game, which is called Shadows. It stars 2 protagonists again, which we haven't really seen implemented since Syndicate, although some could say Origins had Bayek and Aya, but you get what I mean. Look, I'm a big Assassin's Creed fan. I've beaten pretty much every game besides those side-scroller ones. I've also 100%ed Syndicate, Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, and Mirage. I know my AC lore pretty damn well, and I've been playing these games since their inception. And Shadows is the first time I've seen a trailer for an Assassin's Creed game, and genuinely, I felt nothing while watching it. Everything seems wrong with this, not just the fact that Ubisoft can't seem to make a good game these days to save their lives, but also because the protagonists are just,
I mean, Ubisoft and a lot of these bigger gaming corporations and game producers they keep putting out a bunch of slop, in my opinion. I don't know what is to be held in the future, but I'm just holding hope out for anything that's worthwhile.
let's get into it. Also, there was someone who worked on Assassin's Creed before who leaked the entire original story of an Assassin's game set in Japan, and yeah, they completely changed it. We'll get into that later on. Firstly, let's delve into the idea of Yasuke being a protagonist in Assassin's Creed. From what we know of this supposed historical figure's life, he was never actually a samurai. Yasuke was a slave brought to Japan by the Jesuits, where he was eventually brought into mainland Japan, and obviously his presence made people confused. Mostly because of the color of his skin, but also because Yasuke was around a foot taller than everyone else, and his skin was a big part of his appeal to the Japanese people. Oda Nobunaga, who's one of the most famous historical figures in Japanese history, apparently got his servants to try to scrub Yasuke to see if his skin would lighten. And when it didn't, Oda became utterly fascinated with the man, and by the way, Yasuke wasn't even his original name. We actually don't even know what his real name was. But Oda gave him the name Yasuke, and he became essentially a retainer.
I mean, another thing is, people are all over this kind of stuff because it involves race and identity politics. And generally Endymion covers that stuff quite well. But, like, why are we dealing with this? Every single day, every single week, we have another bout of racism this, sexism that, I'm offended here. What's next? Like... We had Sweet Baby Inc. When that finally came to light, everybody was like, let's not play games by them. Yep, I agree with that. If you're gonna ruin a game and push an agenda, I just want to play games because they're a fantasy for me. They're an escape. What's the point in playing a game if it's gonna remind me of the shitty life that we're all living in?
Of Oda Nobunaga. Pretty much everything the modern world knows of Yasuke comes from the Shinsho Koki, which is a collection of manuscripts that detailed what exactly happened during Nobunaga's reign. And in that book, if you will, it detailed what Yasuke did for Oda, as it says. A black man was taken on as a vassal by Nobunaga-sama and received a stipend. His name was decided to be Yasuke. He was also given a short sword and a house. He was sometimes made to carry Nobunaga-sama's tools. There's more that was said in the Shinsho Koki, including the black man understood a little Japanese and Nobunaga never tired of talking with him. And because he was strong and could do a few tricks, Nobunaga took great pleasure in protecting him and had him roam around the city of Kyoto with an attendant. Some people in the town thought that Nobunaga might make him as Tono, or Lord. So far as we can tell based on the historical text here, Yasuke was essentially more of a friend of Oda, and he also somewhat kind of was in a racist way using Yasuke to do tricks at parties to impress his guests, like a black jester or something. It's kind of weird. But hey, I wasn't alive back then, alright? I'm just telling you what happened based on what we have available here. Beyond this, while Yasuke was made a retainer, which meant he was given armor and a katana like any other samurai, he, according to the historical documents, never actually saw any combat. And instead, it was more of a performative reason than anything else as to why he was given these titles and trinkets. Japanese people have obviously always been respectful, and clearly Oda saw Yasuke as a friend. And likely, due to the unique fact that Yasuke was the only black man in Japan at the time, Oda would not risk losing his friend in something like combat. Eventually, through time, Oda would be betrayed by one of his closest generals, and amidst the conflict, Oda Nobunaga would be forced to perform seppuku, which is essentially righteous self-deletion. This would allow the person who performed the act to retain their honor while admitting defeat. If you refuse this action, it would basically sully your name, family, and all of that. Anyway, Oda then died, and so too would his son as well, if I remember correctly, who also performed seppuku too. Yasuke was then, according to text, placed in chains now that his lord and his legacy were effectively ended by the traitorous general. At this point, what we know about Yasuke is that he was not killed by the general, but was instead given back to the Jesuits that were occupying a part of Japan. In case you don't know, the Jesuits were missionaries that were tasked with converting the Japanese to Christianity in the name of God. And Yasuke was a slave that they likely brought with them in order to do manual labor. Beyond this point, historically, we have no record of what happened to Yasuke after this. He was simply given back to his former masters, and then he faded into obscurity. Whether he died or had children of any kind, we simply don't know. But at least, based on these recordings, we can confidently assume that Yasuke was never an actual samurai that saw combat of any kind. And pretty much any media that depicts him as such is a fabrication that just uses his unique position as the first black man in Japan as a stepping off point. Of course, in Shadows, they're going all in and making Yasuke this badass samurai that just kills people without punity. which also doesn't make any sense since the man was considered a retainer of Oda Nobunaga, and even if he was to see combat, he would not be allowed to just wander into any establishment he wants and then just commit murder. He would likely just be arrested, overwhelmed, and killed at best, so already Ubisoft is taking the piss with Yasuke. We know the real reason why they're pushing him as a protagonist here, and it's to pander and increase their ESG score ultimately. Also, let's be real, if a 6-foot-something black guy in a sea of 5-foot Japanese people was just waltzing around causing havoc and murdering people...
Yeah, that'd be pretty fucking obvious. That would be extremely obvious, dude. There's no way he wouldn't get caught and found.
In the name of Oda Nobunaga, there's literally no way Yasuke could hide anyways.
Yeah, no, they'd be searching the entire city, and I don't think, based on, like, how the Japanese are so fucking, like, they're well known for being racist, towards, well, not necessarily racist, but, like, prejudiced and, biased towards different races in the world. Even in Korea, right, they're racist against some of their own kind. I would assume the same thing in Japan and any other place in Asia. Like, somebody has a different set of pupils or different nose. It happens all over the world, so it makes sense. But still, no, there's no way somebody who's like 6 to 6'5" or something would ever get away out in the public eye. Nor if they were that deep colored of a skin tone. Especially if they're the only person who is like that at the time. You're gonna get caught.
People would just be like, did you see who did it? And everybody would go, yeah, it was the literal only black guy in the entire country. You can't miss him because he's a foot taller than everybody else too. The whole thing is ludicrous. I understand the appeal. I mean, it's the whole stranger in a strange land angle. But in terms of Assassin's Creed, it just feels very out of place. Of course, people will say Assassin's Creed has twisted history aplenty already.
Yes, they have.
I mean, Leonardo da Vinci is Ezio's inventor friend in AC2 and so on, but at least there, Leonardo was an inventor who designed things and all of that. That's real history. So that's a clever twist of history that allows for some historical characters that can be used to give that game flavor. In Yasuke's case, the bending of his historical context just completely goes against his entire historical background. He didn't fight in any battles. He literally carried the tools of Oda Nobunaga and did party tricks for him to impress his guests. Taking someone who was more seen as a friend or jester in a sense and then turning him into this Terminator badass samurai is going against the historical lore of the person in question. Not to mention you also have the other main character, Naoe, who is apparently a female shinobi. She'll be the more classic Assassin's Creed-esque character in the game who can stealth and do all that sort of stuff. Even her inclusion is nothing but a fabrication, and if anything, a gender swap to appease the
I don't think there were many female shinobi or samurai, if anything. I mean, there obviously were, but like not a lot, from what I remember.
We need female main characters in everything the industry has had a raging hard on for so long these past few years.
I don't think that's too outside the realm of possibility, female shinobi.
Ubisoft's own team that's making Shadow.
Well, let's take a look here. Shinobi were there in feudal Japan. A ninja or a shinobi. We're not going to get any conclusive results, at least on a search engine. I'd probably have to look up, like, full-on history papers, and I don't think I have the time for that in this stream.
Naoe is meant to be the daughter of Fujibayashi Nagato, And I'm not making that up, by the way. They confirmed this in their own video that released immediately following the CGI trailer. As you can see here on screen, they literally put his name right there for you to see. Nagato was widely regarded to be one of the most lethal and famous shinobi in Japanese history. He was instrumental to the freeing of Japan, and he is also considered one of the 3 Iga, alongside 2 other shinobis named Momochi Sendayu and Hattori Hanzo. Honestly, making Nagato, Hanzo, or Momochi the protagonists of your Japanese Assassin's Creed game would make absolutely total sense, considering you'd have your historical angle and it would be completely believable as well because they existed. But of course, none of those real life people were women, and that's the real reason why they're not considered for the main character role. It's the same way with Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla. While they give you the option, the female variants are considered the canon choices. Even though in ancient Greece, for example, a female Spartan would never have existed because...
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. Female Spartans never existed. Ever. There are very specific gender roles in a lot of ancient societies. That is just how things were. And even now, we do have somewhat of a specific set of roles for men and women. Not to the degree in which was in more, well, earlier times, but still, there were no female Spartans ever.
Spartans were not women. And in Valhalla's case, a female chieftain somehow raiding all over England and establishing the Viking grip of control was also something that just never happened. All of these examples, alongside the shinobi of Japan, were all led by, and their feats were ushered in by men exclusively. Again, don't get mad at me, alright? I didn't write history. I'm just telling you what the hell actually happened based on what we know. I mean, Ubisoft could have made a Japanese Assassin's Creed game with a female samurai like Nakazawa Koto, who was considered to be the last female samurai to ever live. Of course, she...
Yo, I mean, that would actually make sense. I think that would be kind of cool.
He operated as a samurai in the 1800s, while Oda Nobunaga's history happened around 300 years prior to that. But the point remains that the only reason why Ubisoft chose Oda Nobunaga and that specific period of time was so that they had an excuse to use Yasuke as a marketing gimmick in their story. And like I said, Naoe is obviously a fictional character that is inspired by real-life individuals like Hanzo and Nagato, who are men, not women. And like I said, when it came to these historical figures within these professions and such, there were never women within them. It's the female Spartan thing all over again, pretty much. Ubisoft is bending history in the actual historical context in order to implement their own agenda pushing. If any of these recent Assassin's Creed games followed the actual historical...
Well, yeah, they've been doing a bunch of ESG stuff. It's... Oh, Animate Square Shield. But I don't understand why so much of this stuff is just being faked. Is it really to cater to the wider audience, or is it just to push your agenda? I was seeing some threads on Twitter earlier how people say they hate the wider audience. It's not the wider audience that's doing this. Let's be honest. It's corporations and companies. They're trying to make their shareholders happy, and their shareholders are the ones who believe in this nonsense. It's always been that. It has always been a problem within, not a problem on the outside. Outside individuals do not complicate or change things that happen within a company. They never do. And even if they do, it's by coincidence. You think any of these, like, petitions that we write up or anything like that actually makes a difference? No. It's almost always some flack that they get in, like, a small court case. And they're like, yeah, you gotta do something about this. But you don't need to change your ideology. And even then, it wasn't about ideology either. They're trying to make somebody on the upper board of whoever was elected in there for your company happy. Because you want to make a lot of money, right? Make them happy. Suck it up.
Historical events, then Alexios would be the main character of Odyssey because only male Spartans existed, and Eivor would actually be a man instead of a woman for very obvious reasons too. The same can be said with Naoe. She's simply a gender-bent, pandering version of actual famous and accomplished shinobi. Of course, these are video games, and you could argue, well, Ezio never existed, nor did Bayek, which is true. But at least in those games' worlds, they are at least have the decency to place a man within the leading role there. Because largely speaking, especially when it comes to conflicts, the majority of the stories that Ubisoft has told in Assassin's Creed would absolutely have men within the leading roles. You can try and say otherwise, but look in your heart, you know it to be true. Pretty much, Japan has been taken by Ubisoft and then
It's not even about looking in my heart. It's looking at the facts. What are the facts? Do we understand them properly, or are we just making shit up? Pulling stuff out of our ass. That's what really matters to me. Misconstruing history for a video game, okay, that's not that big of an issue. But like lying to people and saying this is what happened, that's a bigger issue in my opinion.
Formed into a diversity, equity, and inclusion headache from every conceivable angle so far. Not only are you forced to play as a female shinobi who was raised by an actual legendary male shinobi, but they also made a guy who was known more so as a trained pet to a minister than an actual samurai. The entire concept from the get-go is something beyond historical revisionism, and to say that I'm tired of it would be an understatement. I think Ubisoft should have at the least given the player the option to turn Naoe into a male or female. I think that would at least alleviate the credibility and believability of the game's story. Sure, it would end up yet again like Odyssey and Valhalla, where they say the female versions are canon, but the male versions are undoubtedly going to be played far more. And I think they should have done the very same thing with Shadows here, but of course they didn't, because they want you to play a female shinobi because Yas Queen and all of that. To be frank with you, I have no hope that Ubisoft pulls this off in any meaningful way, especially considering they've become a publisher that makes mostly slop these days anyways. Every Assassin's Creed game for the past 5 or more years has felt largely the same, with bad parkour and really nonsensical Isu, pre-civilization nonsense thrown in like fighting Medusa or whatever else. Gone are the days when Assassin's Creed actually cared about historical accuracy. Remember how in the original AC game, they removed the crossbow that was in the trailer because it wasn't historically accurate to the setting? Yeah, I miss those days. Look, I get that you want to do things that get people talking, and having Yasuke and a female shinobi as your dual protagonist is definitely going to do that, but you have to ask yourselves if it's really worth it in the long run. Ubisoft is all but dying lately, I mean...
Not all press is good press. I think we finally learned that. And it also depends on what the subject of the press is. You want mostly good press. You want people to speak highly of you in real life and online. You want it to be almost all word of mouth as well. Because if you have to pay people to advertise your stuff, and yeah, they can do it willingly, but they're doing it for money. You want regular, everyday people to be saying good things about your games, about your media, about your created entertainment. If a majority of people are saying good things about your game and your media, then good. There is no discussion. But that's not what's happening.
I mean, every game they've released, apart from maybe Mirage, has been failing upon release.
That and like every single form of media is going to have problems. There are some of these games that are coming out with like weird policies in their like contracts before you get the game, right? That are saying you can't make any judgments against our game. These are games that are coming out from China. You can only wonder why. So many things are going downhill nowadays with the gaming sphere.
Skull and Bones is like 50% off right now on PSN as I'm writing this, and I still wouldn't play that game even if it was free. What Ubisoft needs right now is a massive win, and this doesn't seem to be it, at first glance anyways. Plus, the unfortunate comparisons are going to happen too, where players compare this to Ghost of Tsushima or even Rise of the Ronin. And knowing Ubisoft, they can't make a good battle system even if their lives depended on it. I mean, Valhalla felt floaty at best. And Mirage's actual combat was dog water. You just tapped like one button to win pretty much. In all honesty, I think a Japanese Assassin's Creed game is too late at this point, and Ghost of Tsushima is what I believe AC should have become long ago. Very light RPG mechanics and a major focus on story with pulse-pounding katana combat. The likelihood Ubisoft of all places outdoes Ghost is next to impossible in my eyes. I just don't see it happening. And I think even Rise of the Ronin will likely play better as well. At least in Rise's case, the game was not pushing a female protagonist or a guy who did nothing as your main character. And if you actually play Rise of the Ronin, which you should, it's a good game, the majority of the people who helped shape Japan amidst the Western invasion are predominantly male characters. And by the way, Rise's entire core cast pretty much is made up of almost exclusively actual historical figures. Figures like Ryoma Sakamoto, Taka Murayama, Kido Takayoshi, not to mention you even have real-life Westerners in that game too. Like Matthew Perry and Jules Burnett. By the way, Jules was the real-life inspiration of the Tom Cruise movie The Last Samurai. If you want games that more so actually represent their historical time periods within Japan with actual real people where it does make sense, go play something like Ghost of Tsushima or Rise of the Ronin in my opinion. What Ubisoft is doing here is the classic AAA publisher chest move we see these days. Fill your game with convenient DEI stuff and hope it's enough to get higher scores than usual by journalists who can bring themselves to rate games with diversity low.
Yeah, journalists tend to just talk shit nowadays. They're not even really actual journalists. There are a few of them that are still actual journalists, obviously, but like, I can't trust a journalist. They're just an activist at this point.
Of course, one former Ubisoft employee who has now left the games industry altogether has revealed what the original story was behind the Japan-led Assassin's Creed game. The person in question is Twitter user Infinite Tail Comic. Here's what they said about the previous Japanese Assassin's Creed game in development before this all changed, and I quote, "I worked on some narrative elements for the Sengoku era of Japan for Assassin's Creed back in 2013-2014 when I worked under contract in San Jose, Tokyo. I guess they tossed out all of that for Black Samurai and some canon-destroying Kinochi boss. I'm so glad I'm not in that industry anymore. I guess it's only fitting that my contributions to the studios vanishes like everything else that I worked on. Every MMO shooter I have worked on has been shut down. Here's a brief synopsis of the original story from what I can remember. It's been a decade. The plot focused on the young monk Yamuchi Taka as the playable character. Taka means hawk to coincide with the then naming convention of every playable hero being named after a bird of prey. No idea if that changed with all of the newer ones, disjointed games that no longer have Desmond as the core hero that bounded everything together. The main conflict was about the Sword of Eden, aka Excalibur, Honjo Masamune, Genghis Khan's sword, etc., something like that. And how it had given its latest wielder, Oda Nobunaga, an unfair advantage in his conquest of Japan. After Nobunaga is assassinated by Hattori Hanzo, Taka becomes a part of the Brotherhood and under Hanzo is trained as an assassin, or shinobi. The Brotherhood try to transport the recovered sword out of Japan but are beset by Jesuit or Templar ships and then it is lost. To make matters worse, Hanzo is assassinated as he considers retirement as a monk. His lord Tokugawa Ieyasu charges Taka with finding the killer and recovering the sword. Despite Nobunaga's successor Toyotomi Hideyoshi acquiring the sword and going on a rampage that extends into Korea, Taka steals the sword back, and then the Mad Daimyo loses his power, weakening his campaign in Korea. Incensed by the theft, Toyotomi believes he was betrayed by the Templars and basically exterminates all Jesuit Templars in Japan. Taka infiltrates Toyotomi's castle and faces him in a final battle, resulting in Toyotomi's death. The ambitious Daimyo is left to die as Taka slips away before his retainers could intercept him. The now seasoned assassin spares Toyotomi's infant heir, knowing the clan has lost its teeth and will eventually wither without Hideyoshi. Ieyasu begins his ambitious power grab, demanding Taka and the Brotherhood to give him the sword and help him wipe away Abstergo, in Latin, all the enemies from Japan, to fully united under his clan's banners. Taka and the Brotherhood decline, and then they vanish into the shadows with the sword. Oh well, Black Samurai and female shinobi it is, what a shame, end quote. As you can see, Ubisoft had an actual story that would have honored Japanese culture and featured a Japanese man in the main role, which would have made much more sense historically. But naturally, this all got thrown away for Yasuke and female shinobi girl boss instead. Infinite Tail had more to say about this, like, if I recall, there was a scenario in the original treatment where Taka and Hanzo had to assassinate a noblewoman assassin turned Templar that was running an orphanage of girls all trained to be Kinyochi, female shinobi. Apparently, there were also a lot of hot ninja chicks in that, though none were playable. So the game would have featured actual attractive female characters as well. Yeah, the current Ubisoft would never do that. Just look at Skull and Bones from its announcement till now. Good lord. This is all a goddamn shame. And an Assassin's Creed Japanese game where warring leaders fight over a sword that gives them strength over their followers, almost as if the Piece of Eden radiates some form of radio signals in order to sway others to their side. That would be a very deadly weapon within the lore of AC and the Isu. Imagining a weapon with the power to basically brainwash entire armies and government officials into blind loyalty would be a very cool concept for an Assassin's Creed game. And now my brain is racing. What if Taco grabbed a hold of the Sword of Eden at the end when facing off against Hideyoshi? And because he's an assassin and didn't want to leave a trace, he uses a sword Isu technology to sway his enemy into ending himself to make it seem like he died by his own hand. Or imagine if the sword chipped and you got a shard of the sword earlier in the game, and then you could use the limited power of that piece of the sword to control the minds of maybe guards or something. Or Taka forges the metal from the Sword of Eden into his hidden blade, and it allows him to interrogate people and get information out of them when he closes in on them, and then brandishes his hidden blade. I gotta stop, man. I'm giving Ubisoft too many cool ideas that they'll never use. Instead, you get to play as Yasuke and Yas Queen instead. I hate it here. Oh great, things just got worse as I was making this. It turns out now that Wikipedia is already running damage control for Ubisoft, and the whole Yasuke was a samurai narrative.
Really? Of course. Of course. Because, of course. I'm sure people have pictures of the old Wikipedia articles. And, you know, since Wikipedia is categorized and upkept by users, anybody can change whatever they want. And I'm sure there's an entire Wikipedia war right now with that. People saying stuff here and people saying stuff there. Rechanging the documents on Wikipedia to make sure that it fits the proper historical, you know, all that. It's just more of the same stuff we see over and over again.
I wish I was kidding, but prior to the trailer's release, this is what Wikipedia had to say about Yasuke. It's important to note that there are no historical writings or evidence that Yasuke was considered a samurai. He was never given a fief or referred to as one in any writings. Most of our knowledge of his life comes from these messages written by missionaries and locals. In 1579, Yasuke arrived in Japan in the service of the Italian Jesuit missionary Alessandro Valignano. Visitor of missions in the Indies and India, he had been appointed the visitor inspector of the Jesuit missions in the Indies, which at that time meant East Africa, South, Southeast, and East Asia. Valignano's party spent the first 2 years of their stay in Japan mainly in Kyushu. So Wikipedia even confirms that Yasuke was not a samurai. Well, not anymore. As you can see in the now updated text added to Wikipedia in the same section, the part that stated there's no historical evidence that Yasuke was never a samurai, it has suspiciously disappeared all of a sudden. I know Wikipedia can technically be updated by anyone to an extent, but we're seeing in real time that narratives are getting changed, guys. Now some curious Assassin's Creed fan will look up Yasuke and read this and go, oh boy, he really was a samurai. Where if they knew who Yasuke was literally a day prior, they would say, oh, so he wasn't a samurai. Isn't this crazy how fast narratives can be shifted like this? Of course other people on Twitter are saying nobody had an issue with Neo would put a white guy in the lead role. Which also, by the way, had Yasuke as a boss within the game who's called Obsidian Samurai. But the difference between Neo and Assassin's Creed is that Neo does not attempt to be historically accurate whatsoever, since for the majority of the game you're literally fighting demons. And the entire plot of Neo is that some British alchemist guy is using these stones to transform people into monsters. Like, it's not historically accurate at all. That obviously never happened in real life. William Adams, however, was a real person who did exist. He is considered to be the first white man to ever reach Japan, and he was a sailor as well. We do know that historically William Adams was eventually given a new title in Japan and was named Mura Anjin. And he would also be given an estate and marry a samurai's daughter, to which he would have 2 children named Joseph and Susanna. He also had another previous family back in the West, but Muri Anjin was forbidden to leave Japan because the shogun at the time greatly valued William Adams, or Mura Anjin if you will, for his counsel when it came to diplomacy and commerce. Basically, William Adams was a real historical figure who has a lot more recorded history and importance to Japanese culture than someone like Yasuke. And we know that Adams had kids, and he even had a child by a concubine at some point as well, which is, you know, things happen, I guess. And we know that Williams was also buried in Japan upon his death, and his son Joseph followed in his footsteps as a mentor and counsel in the ongoing trade regulations between Japan and the Western world. Williams was also named a samurai, but as if he actually fought in battles, it doesn't seem so. But at least unlike Yasuke, Adams actually used his prowess in commerce and trade to establish trade routes with the outside world. If we wanted a foreigner in an Assassin's Creed Japan game that wasn't going to be from that place and actually had a real impact, Ubisoft should have gone with William Adams over Yasuke, but we both know why that didn't happen, and that's because Adams is a white man, and that's no bueno in today's world. So instead of playing a game around a man who actually shaped Japan for the better, well, until the next shogun technically forbade international trade, but that would also eventually get abolished, but Adams has an actual legacy in Japan is what I'm saying. He has multiple children and heirs, an actual wife, an estate, and a burial site within Japan to this day. But I guess none of that matters, so instead here you get to play as a guy who did nothing but apparently dance and do party tricks for rich people. And he watched his master die, and then he got shipped off to never be heard of again. And now we're seeing the historical revisionism happening in real time. Oh boy, fellas, are we in for it now. Assassin's Creed used to be an interesting series that took history and celebrated it, except for when they started doing stupid stuff like adding sphinxes and cyclopses and fighting Egyptian gods out of nowhere. Those things are all so stupid. But back when Ass Creed was still Ass Creed, like in the days of Ass Creed 1 and 2, Brotherhood, and so on, the series had a real identity. The more recent games have attempted to basically become the Witcher 3 clones, but failed in coming anywhere near the inspiration that was behind them. And now Ubisoft has decided to hedge all their bets on one of the most dubious historical figures in Japanese history and place all their hopes and dreams onto this one game. It's a bold strategy, friend. I'm sure Shadows will still sell well. I mean, it has Assassin's Creed in the title. But will it be considered an amazing game that reaches the upper echelons of that series' greatest achievements?
No.
I guess time will tell. As of now, anyway, we don't have any actual gameplay, but if I could guess, the game probably just looks and plays exactly like Valhalla, just now you have a katana, probably. And I'll also bet money that the game will be very glitchy at release, but the online shop will work perfectly fine because that's all that really matters anyways. Making Yasuke and fake girl boss your main characters in this game is about as
possible to
historically
spend your
accurate as a
money.
female Spartan being your
really
main
matters.
character in Odyssey. Which is to say, they both check out. It's not historically accurate at all, but don't ask questions, I guess. Just consume product and get excited for next product. But what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks to my patrons as always. Like, subscribe, share, and have a wonderful day. I'm sure I'll have more on this as time goes on, but for now...
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Localization stuff from Rev.
Hey everyone, today I want to talk about SpongeBob, and that's because my perspective on it has changed a lot over the last 2 decades. I can name 3 distinct periods of my life so far in which I've watched his first few seasons and gained different insights each time. In my childhood, I liked SpongeBob like every other kid simply because it was funny.
We're not cavemen, we have technology.
Then, I rewatched the first few seasons in late adolescence and could start to pinpoint some specific elements that made the jokes hit for me. For instance, the show's absurdity occurred to me no longer just as silly gags and random outbursts, but a lot of times as comedic highlights of our fears.
Oh, how can it get any worse?
The absurdity is also used to highlight the extremes of certain character traits, like when known cheapskate Mr. Krabs provides excellent service for free because he thinks he's dreaming, until he realizes it is in fact real life, so he forces a customer to unwatch a TV show. Give me that, you didn't pay for that.
Yeah. Ah, geez, that is pretty funny. Why you can't have that? That's not how this works. Yeah, exactly. All right, gotta grab some food. Eat these lobsters to heal up, and then we're gonna grab the bigger ones to go back into the dungeon. Oh, almost healed me up perfectly. Okay, so another thing that I need to do is grab these ranars. And then I think I picked a bunch of snape grass earlier. No. Oh, no, there it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I need to grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Uh-huh. Making my own fucking potions. Yes. I don't know. I think SpongeBob is probably the best, one of the best shows up to like season 3. And grab another range potion, and let's head back in there. How many more? Yeah, we've got 104 of them left.
There's also the subtle wit that went over my head when I was younger.
The International Justice League of Super Acquaintances, a subsidiary of Viacom.
I love this one, because no kid knows what a subsidiary is or what Viacom is. But when you do, this joke bangs. There's a handful of these moments in the early episodes.
You used me for land development.
So, you tried to kill me over a little New Age management, eh?
Nobody gives a care about the fate of labor as long as they can get their instant gratification.
Lastly, I grew fonder of the show's live-action clips sprinkled in intermittently. Like, this is the actual clip they played after SpongeBob said he was going to be one step closer to getting his driver's license. And I also count the abundance of memes and sound bites that we all know and love.
You what? My leg? Oh my God!
I say all that to say, I liked SpongeBob as a kid. Then I got a little older and confirmed that I not only still liked it, but the depth of my appreciation actually grew. And then I rewatched it in quarter life or early adulthood, and I have to say, after growing up and realizing some of the harsh realities of the world and going through a long depressive episode that coincided with the global pandemic, my mental health is just in a different place. And watching SpongeBob now, I still love it. It still makes me laugh. But the things I'm most intrigued by aren't really funny at all. Now I'm most interested in the episodes where the characters lose their minds or have a mental breakdown. The ones where the entire episode is about one character trapped in a negative thought loop, tortured by their own imagination of worst-case scenarios. What's the subtext of an episode like that?
Isn't it crazy how messed up this is?
Did they really write it like that just so we could be like squids going crazy, lol? I don't know, because now when I watch it, I'm left with a reflection of my own struggling with the human condition. These themes piqued my interest this time around because I saw myself in them. I often find myself stuck in my head worrying about potential disasters that never actually come. I often take a small setback and catastrophize it, making it feel like a total nightmare until I find out the thing I was tripping about was actually a total non-issue. I saw Squidward drive himself crazy over nothing, was like, "You're just like me, for real!" Sure, they were writing a funny kids show, but they were writing a funny kids show that was candidly infused with grown-up fears and questions. Why do we freak out when we hit midlife?
No! No! I ain't old like you! I ain't old!
Why do we freak out when we hit quarter life?
Need furniture!
Why do we freak out even when there's nothing really to freak out about? And when everything's gone to shit and life has beaten us down until our spirit is broken, what does one do in the face of a cold, indifferent world? I was curious to get some real answers to these questions, and given that I am not a medical professional, I decided that to supplement our analysis of the classic episodes, I'd take the extra step of also reading some books from people who are medical professionals. I will be referring to them throughout the video and sharing what I've learned so that we can better understand the mental health crisis we're living through.
Take it, friends. Arm yourselves with knowledge.
We're a generation that started growing up watching SpongeBob and finished growing up becoming depressed. And if SpongeBob truly is the gift that keeps on giving, then maybe he can help us out one more time. So with a dark curiosity and an urgency to improve our mental health, let's begin our descent into crisis, catastrophe, and SpongeBob.
Wow, that was 5 minutes of just the intro. Whoa, that's good.
I want to say at the forefront of this chapter that I'm looking into these crises from the perspective of someone who's currently going through a quarter-life crisis. So obviously I can't speak from personal experience about midlife or its crisis, other than sharing that it seemed to really affect my dad for a while, and he'll say things like, that midlife crisis is no joke. You know, the tedious and soul-sucking office life of the modern day gets exhausting after a few years, or even months. So I can only imagine how maddening having to do that for a few decades is, especially when you've got your own hopes and dreams.
Sorry I'm late. I got caught in traffic on the way in here when that whole "I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of my life" thing reared its ugly head, and
But in this book, Quarter Life, The Search for Self in Early Adulthood, which was written by Satya Doyle Bayok, that's where our tone-setting opening quote comes from. And she's going to be our best friend for the next 2 chapters because her book, which is brand new, like literally only a year old, is the perfect guide for understanding the history of the midlife crisis and how it relates to quarter life and its crisis. So going into this, I knew that the midlife crisis is where people typically between the ages of about 40 and 60 grapple with intense panic about things like their imminent mortality, regrets of how they've spent their youthful years, and grueling feelings that this can't be all there is, there must be something more for me. But I wanted a bit more insight, and this is where Satya comes in. She explains the background info concisely for us. In the mid-20th century, as the midlife crisis gained prevalence and attention, large tremors began to disrupt the expected goals of adulthood. In big enough numbers that it began to resonate across societies, midlife adults were suddenly in pursuit of the indefinable more, she continues. Older adults were no longer expected, across the board, to feel satisfied merely by survival, security, and family. Too many middle-class, midlife adults had woken up to the fact that there was something missing in life, something else they needed.
Essentially, you're supposed to climb this ladder, supposedly psychologically, but it's really tying our psychology to the economy or to patriarchy, so that it's not actually about self-development at all. That's how we've sort of been trained. But it's not really about self-development. It's not really about maturity. It's really about get a job, buy a house,
Achievements.
find a partner, achievements,
Yes.
acquisition, right?
Yeah.
And that.
Right. What have you done with your life? Do you have a job? Do you have something worthwhile in your life? If not, well, I guess you aren't worth anything. Yeah, that's kind of the thoughts that go through some people's heads. Like, what am I worth to people? How useful am I? Am I financially stable? these are extremely important things that people think about on a daily basis, especially in their quarter life. And as it is, I'm also in my quarter life, right? I'm 23, so this is incredibly serious. Oh, jeez. Where am I going in my life is the question I personally have. It's like, oof.
I think has made many of us sick, unwell, unhappy, disoriented, confused. So the midlife crisis was then this kind of invented notion that, well, it turns out if you climb that ladder until you're 40, there is a crisis that shows up, because in fact it's not satisfying to just climb that ladder.
So there's this trend of midlife adults having their bases covered as far as survival, security, and family, but that's not enough. They're still unhappy. Isn't that f***ed up? Let's watch someone freak out about it. Midlife Crustacean is straightforwardly an episode about Mr. Krabs going through a midlife crisis. The episode begins with a grueling depiction of waking up sluggishly that adds a heavy truth to the name of his restaurant.
Who wants to eat at a place they think is crusty?
Personality-wise, it feels like he's lost his touch, but has he really? Oh yeah, certainly. His daughter Pearl lets him in on some slang and his overexcitement ruins it immediately.
Coral, definitely out.
Coming off that start to his day, Mr. Krabs ruminates on his insecurities, and the world around him behaves in that absurd way I talked about earlier, where everyone around you just so happens to be acutely focused on the very thing you're currently worrying about.
It's all old and dried out, like that man right there.
Oh, that's the thing I'm sensitive about!
The more that he yearns for is that feeling of being young again, that wild, crazy feeling as he describes it. So one might ask, why do so many midlife adults feel this way? You know, if your basic needs are met and you even have like love and kids, why would you need anything more? The problem is that we've only been looking at half of the equation. The main thesis of Satya's book, if you ask me, is conveyed succinctly in this quote. True psychological adulthood is a kind of maturity that is about balance, a dynamic play between being part of a community and a conscious individual too. It is about finding one's way towards both stability and meaning, like a union between order and chaos, civilization and nature, or one's humanness and one's divinity. It is a symbiotic relationship in which the two parts of oneself each have a distinct role to play, like a surfboard for the ocean waves, a fireplace for fire, or a goblet for wine. So this theme of stability and meaning, of having a balance of both, is the key to a healthy and happy adulthood.
So I talk about it in the book a little alchemical.
That's really interesting, honestly. I don't know. I mean, if you could fit all of those into one person, I'm sure they'd be a very, like, fulfilled individual. I definitely don't have all of those, for sure. Jeez. Be nice if I did.
I talk about it as needing both the goblet and the wine, or the surfboard and the ocean, that we need both elements. We need both the ego and the self. So in the book, I talk about those really more specifically as the stability and meaning.
And that brings us back to Mr. Krabs. You see, what Mr. Krabs already has is stability. He presumably makes good money, he has a home, he has a family. He's pretty much good in the having your shit together department. But what he's missing in his life is meaning. He's missing a sense of passion and curiosity. He's missing an outlet for self-expression. He's missing those unpredictable and unplannable moments that light your soul on fire. This is the common midlife crisis story because the idea of prioritizing stability first and meaning later was normal for Krabs' generation. It's a simple breakdown of adult goals that make intuitive sense. Create stability before seeking meaning. Root down into life before reflecting too much on existence, spirituality, or mortality. Turns out, rejecting meaning for the first half of your life is a completely unnatural and stifling way of living. And this is why the midlife crisis happens. People who had spent the first 40 or so years of their lives focusing solely on stability would realize their encroaching expiration date, look back at the lack of meaning in their lives, all the stuff that they still have never done, all the things that they dreamed of doing but still have never gotten around to, and feel an overwhelming sense of this can't be all there is. And to cope with that, they would make sudden, rash decisions to try to overcorrect. They would try to fulfill the inner desires that they've shunned their entire lives last minute, like buying the dream car they've always wanted, cheating on their significant other, or cooking meth to show the world that they are in fact a force to be reckoned with. Tragically, in his desperate pursuit of meaning, Mr. Krabs' outward-reaching hand is rejected, and rejected again. again, with his sadness from throughout the day building up into what becomes a burning frustration. Not only being deprived of that feeling of being young and cool again, but instead getting made a fool of, and increasingly so, until ultimately he's publicly humiliated in a place designed for children, painted as a clown for their entertainment. The children circling around him are chanting in a way that feels like a psychotic nightmare. To me, it almost feels as if aging itself is mocking his pathetic desire to feel young again, to resist its inevitable force. Who wouldn't snap?
I'm feeling like a total barnacle head!
To recap what we've just learned, let's briefly address another midlife crisis from the show, in The Algae's Always Greener. In this episode, Plankton feels unsatisfied with his life, envying Mr. Krabs for having everything that he doesn't. Plankton also has stability in his life. Sure, he doesn't have a lot of customers, but it's not like he's fighting for survival. He's able to keep the lights on and put holographic food on the table. Plus, he's married to his computer wife. The more that Plankton craves, he believes, can be found by living Mr. Krabs' life. Because he's always wanted to be successful like Mr. Krabs, he believes that success would fill the void. Turns out he conveniently had built a life-swapping machine to do exactly that and forgot about it till Karen reminded him. This surreal experience of switching lives with Mr. Krabs allows him to see that living his life isn't just about the outward-facing achievements he presents to the world. Living his life is actually much more about the day-to-day events he experiences. It is my belief that while ambition, goals, and achievements are all indeed important, if you ask me what truly defines a good life, I'd say it's the enjoyment of your day-to-day experiences. Because that is your life. The days make the weeks, make the months, make the years. So you better shape up a life where you enjoy what your average day is like. Everyone has high points, but if you only get to those high points by hating your average day, I don't think that's a smart trade, nor is it a very good life. Anyway, Plankton decides he'd rather live his day-to-day life over Krabs's, which is a sentiment that I do agree with. This is a great episode. But while we're speaking about the midlife crisis, I want to say that this alone probably won't do it for most people. Acceptance and gratitude for what you have is great, but that alone won't entirely fulfill your desires. A person in Plankton's situation will still need to work on incorporating meaningful pursuits into their life to achieve a more fulfilling balance. And maybe now that knowing having Mr. Krabs' success does not give him that meaning, he should give up stealing the Krabby Patty formula. But alas, there's probably hundreds of episodes after this where Plankton still gives a shit about that. But we gotta make some good episodes of episodic television, you know what I mean? Great, so now we understand that the midlife crisis historically has occurred because of the societal tendency to prioritize stability first and meaning later. Again, we need a balance of both to live our best lives, and if we follow this outdated blueprint of smothering our internal calls for meaning, we're more than likely just going to freak out someday too.
The funny thing about The Office is the fans are young. They've never set foot in an office. Most of the fans that watch the show are teenagers and college kids. Very often, I find people that write online and they say, I want to work in an office like in an office.
No, you don't. No, absolutely not. I would never want to work in an office. That's stupid. It is the most hellish experience anyone could ever ask for or intentionally subjugate themselves to. You are bound by contract and metrics, not by your own merit. Nothing you do matters in an office space, in my opinion.
And like they want to work in like a menial 9 to 5. I'm like, no, don't do it.
You're missing
no idea
the whole thing.
how soul crushing it can be.
Wake up, you need to make money. I gotta get out of here. Too late. Wake up, you need to make money.
Careers and job interviews and diplomas and the jobs themselves, it's all brand new, super weird cultural constructions that didn't exist like 300 years ago.
This is your natural habitat. This is your wide open range.
This stuff all seems very normal. It's not. And if you base your self-worth on it, which we do, we are asked to. It's what society says our value is. But if you do, it's gonna be real hard to be happy.
I'm so glad I do not value what I do for work as my life. It's the stupidest thing in the world. Why would you ever do that? I mean, it's commonplace now in our society that, at least in Western spaces, I assume it happens all over the world too, but people value who they are based on what their job is more than what their hobbies are, or what they believe in, or what they want to be. It's becoming more and more apparent as I grow up that I think I don't have as much stability, but I definitely do have more meaning in my life. I'll have to figure that out, I'm sure.
Wake up, you need to make money.
Your thoughts on the term quarter-life crisis?
Abby Wilner, I believe is her name, created this term, quarter-life crisis, around 1997 or something like that. I speak about it in my book briefly. The idea was that people were having these early midlife crises, which is to say that there was all this disorientation because it wasn't working for many of us. I mean,
When I first moved out at 17, and I had a job, right, by that point, nothing made sense. Bills need to be paid. Everything and everyone thinks different than what they actually say, right? You don't know what's actually true. Everyone lies to you to get ahead. Everyone wants to be this or that, or they say this or that. But we're all looking for something. We're all pushing towards some goal that we have. It's exhausting.
was, again, part of that generation. What I talk about with quarter life is what I call quarter life beyond the crisis, which is to say that, in fact, there is a stage of life that nobody talks about. It is a stage of adulthood between adolescence and midlife. Let's call it quarter life. I call it quarter life. I knew right away that what I wanted to do was open a private practice specifically for people in this time of life, specifically for people in what I now call quarter life. And it's gone by a lot of different names, but until I started using quarter life, I really found myself stumbling all the time to understand this stage of life that isn't just a modifier of other stages. It's not just young adulthood. It's not just extended adolescence. And it's not just quote unquote millennials or Gen Zers or boomers, right? There's a stage of life that's timeless, and we need to be talking about it more.
The first point of Satya's that I'd like to echo is that there's very little conversation or information out there about this stage of life. The lack of explanation for it only adds to its confusion. And I'll say right now that reading her whole book has helped me a great deal in demystifying this period of life. It's quite reassuring to have someone that deals with this stuff all the time serve as a guide in navigating uncharted waters. So let's talk about what goes on in this type of freakout. The good news is, the root of the quarter life crisis is actually not much different than that of the midlife crisis, in that our battle too is to achieve a balance of stability and meaning. You need both the waves that are exhilarating and the surfboard that enables you to ride them. You need the fire that is a passion for life and a fireplace to keep it safely contained. A fire without the fireplace is dangerous, and the fireplace without the fire is empty. You need both. So that's what's similar about the midlife and quarter life crises. What's different, however, is that we're experiencing this insecurity and coming to this unsatisfied realization much earlier in life than...
Yeah, I mean, I'm also kind of coming to that realization. I've never been so unsatisfied with, like, the way the world is and my place in it than I was, like, I mean, every single day for, like, the past 7 months. Let's continue.
Historically they have. For us, it's less about what we've already done with our lives and more about what we're going to do with our lives. We may reject the idea that the school, job, house, marriage, kids pipeline is the most true and real checklist of happy adulthood possible.
It's not.
We might get partway through that pipeline and recognize emptiness in our lives much earlier than older generations did. Maybe that's partly because there's so many sad adults surrounding us, it's kind of like hinting to us that this ain't it. And on top of all this, it sure doesn't help that there's no shortage of mockery from older generations who are far too fixated on the idea that we have it easier than they did to realize the atrocious reality of our mental health.
This notion that, like, this is just it, figure it out, kid. You know, that's an old line that I think has literally killed a lot of people in terms of suicide and depression and anguish. We need a more compassionate society for people coming of age, and a more compassionate society in general to say, hey, this isn't working so well. You know, how do we make this better on every level, and how do we encourage people coming of age to love their lives and co-create change?
Sadia was quoting psychologist Erik Erikson, who said, "The youth of today is not the youth of 20 years ago." This much any elderly person would say at any point in history and think it was both new and true. I'm so happy she put that in there. So the confusion and the mockery are add-ons to the core struggle of quarter life, which is forging your own independence and purpose and defining what your unique blend of stability and meaning looks like to you. She breaks down quarter lifers into two types: those who are more inclined to pursue stability first and are relatively comfortable with that focus, which she calls stability types, and are like the lawyers, people in finance, and people consciously seeking marriage. And then there's those who are initially inclined to pursue meaning and who have found themselves at odds with the social expectations for this stage of life, which can be called meaning types, and are like the artists, the philosophers, and musicians. Stereotypical.
Oh no. Oh great, I'm one of these. No wonder.
Speaking with those labels, of course. Fortunately for us, we've already got a decent understanding of stability types, where the battle is about learning to loosen up and have fun while maintaining your hard-earned stability. The struggle is the opposite for meaning types, who are learning to develop some discipline and structure while maintaining their strong connection to creative outlets. In quarter life, meaning types may arrive at adulthood already rejecting that bullshit checklist, feeling that there's much better things to do with their lives. But unfortunately, you still have to get your shit together. And an overemphasis on meaning can easily lead to a disorganized, chaotic, and problematic life that would be remedied by having a better sense of stability. You know, the goblet to hold the wine, the surfboard to ride the waves, or the fireplace to hold the fire. So now let's look at a freak out from a meaning type.
Look, Rock, I got an award!
Nice. Patrick is a great example of a meaning type because he knows how to enjoy himself and pursue what he wants, but he has almost no stability. He can't focus in school, he can't keep a job, he doesn't like doing chores or partaking in adult responsibilities. At best, he has a place to stay. This episode lays out one of the main battles that meaning types face. Despite Patrick being a largely happy individual, his life is not what society expects of him. He's not checking any of the boxes. He's not winning any awards. Or in other words, he's not producing external results. Once he sees SpongeBob thrive in this world of productivity and achievement, Patrick feels like he's missing something, and he quickly concludes he's incapable of achieving it. When he tries to succeed in the lane that SpongeBob is in, he's a total wreck.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
This moment is immediately followed by this next moment that I'm currently breaking up with this voice clip to avoid copyright blocks.
Load of awards for SpongeBob SquarePants! What can I do anything right?
This scene captures what a lot of us feel like all the time. We all know that social media has increased the amount of success on display each of us is able to put out into the world. And while it's cool to see people achieve and succeed, sometimes going on social media when you're feeling like shit is exactly like this moment. There's so many people out there just winning on top of winning, and you feel like you just blew in from Stupid Town. And so we feel like something's wrong with us. The remainder of this episode is Patrick straight up copying SpongeBob, going as far as trying to be him in the belief that SpongeBob holds the keys to success, and by emulating his behavior, he's going to start achieving the same results, and then he won't be a loser anymore. Many of us will see someone else who appears to have it all, and then we'll try to copy and paste their success formula in our own lives to catch up.
I was a wimp before Anchor Arms. Now I'm a jerk and everybody loves me.
I want to be just like him. Yeah.
Without it ever occurring to us that maybe they have traits that make that path well suited for them. And maybe our own traits are different than that and align with something else better suited for us. And that if they try to pursue our lane, they too would struggle. The truth is, people are just built different. The life that's going to work for SpongeBob is not the life that's going to work for Patrick. We must embrace our unique set of traits and learn to nurture our nature, which is precisely what Patrick struggles with in this episode.
What's so great about being a big pink loser?
Nice title drop. The episode ends with Patrick being validated for being himself, accepting his own lane, and returning to pursuing it happily.
So you thought I was kidding, huh? No, in Bikini Bottom, excellence can be found even under a rock.
The 4 pillars, which I do think are really relevant to these stories, the first one is to separate. How do you separate from childhood and parental relationships and the identities that you have when you're younger and really become who you are? It can be physical separation, for sure. It's also a lot of psychological separation and transformation. To listen is the second pillar. This is listening to yourself, learning to listen to your body, learning to differentiate what are instincts, what are imposed belief systems. So learning to listen is really learning to listen to yourself in myriad ways. The third pillar is to build, and that's really more of the discipline and willpower and hard work. How do you put into practice what you know needs to change, what you know needs to be created? I often think of like the Karate Kid wipe on, wipe off image of the sometimes really repetitive, exhausting discipline required, very mundane, boring discipline sometimes required to get us to growth. And the fourth is to integrating what we've learned, and often just witnessing and allowing the integration to unfold. So often the pillar of integration is celebrating and noticing, oh my gosh, something happened. All this work that I've been putting in, all of this witnessing and inner witnessing and labor, outer witnessing and labor, it's coming together and things are starting to happen.
Now, before I talk about a little bit of brain functions, I'd like to repeat my I'm not a doctor disclaimer from the intro. I'm someone who struggled with anxiety their whole life, and particularly had bad mental health over the last several years, and I'm sharing what I've learned by reading these books and how it's helped me. If you'd like to learn more of the actual science of this stuff, of course, you should read the full books or some research from some other legitimate sources. Much like how parts 1 and 2 of this video were essentially a pair, we learned about the origins of the midlife crisis before addressing the quarter-life crisis, parts 3 and 4 are also a pair. Before we learn about worry and catastrophizing, and how stress can work against us, we have to learn about actual catastrophe and how stress can work for us. This is something I'm sure I've heard several times in my life before reading these books. I know for sure it's something my therapist has told me at least a couple times, but for whatever reason, this time around it really stuck. And that's the realization that all this stress and anxiety I feel every day, the physical tension, the sweatiness, the heart rate increase, all of that is pretty much just your survival instincts trying to keep you alive. Like,
jeez. I'm gonna leave this for later.